Don't underestimate or overlook the value of relationships. I had no idea that it was going to be such soul food for me to attend that reunion and see so many of my amazing classmates. Next, healthy relationships come from emotionally healthy individuals. Healthy relationships come from emotionally healthy individuals. Can you have a healthy relationship with emotionally unhealthy people? Can you have a healthy relationship with low emotional intelligent people? Healthy relationships come from emotionally healthy individuals. What is going on, EQ gangsters? All right, so this is part 3 in the series of lessons learned from my West Point 25-year reunion we had in Dallas, Texas, and at the Army Air Force game, which Army won, which I was super excited about. 300 of my classmates showed up with 200 family members, so a total of 500 people, and it was amazing to see everybody at the 25-year reunion. Absolutely amazing. So many great lessons learned. If you have not listened to the previous 2 episodes, definitely encourage you to check it out because, again, I think there's a lot of great, powerful, important lessons that hopefully will either be good reminders for you that you already knew or maybe helps you look at something in a different light. Maybe you heard one of my questions that helped you do some more deeper reflection and introspection that maybe helped move you forward in your relationships or your own life personally or professionally. Thank you all for letting me be a part of your emotional growth journey and emotional health journey and you being a part of mine. Really appreciate that. And for those of you all that are watching us on YouTube, thank you for checking us out on YouTube, or if you're listening to us on the podcast, whatever podcast platform, thank you. And again, thank you for rating, reviewing, subscribing, sharing our different episodes and stuff. Really appreciate that. Your ratings and reviews really help out. And I love hearing from you all and just some of your takeaways and insights on maybe a way that either an interview or an episode that I've done has impacted you. It really means a lot. And I appreciate that. I read all of those reviews. So thank you. And okay, so let's jump in. So some relationships, this is part 3 again. So if you've not heard the previous 2 episodes, I definitely recommend you do. Some relationships will produce a return and some won't, and that's okay. Invest in relationships anyway. Some relationships will produce a return and some won't, and that's okay. Invest in relationships anyway. And by return, yes, it can absolutely be financially, but it doesn't necessarily mean financially. It could be emotionally, it could be socially, it could be mentally, it could be physically, whatever, right? Whatever the benefit is, whatever area. I've got some classmates that are fitness, gurus and ninjas, and that'd be if I did some PT with them, well, there's tons of my classmates that would smoke me physically. Most of them probably would. So there's all kinds of ways that return does not just mean financially. In fact, I didn't even mean it financially when I had come up with it. But for me, it's just emotionally, just the emotional high that I was coming off of from that reunion was amazing. And so that for me, it was kind of an emotional perspective. Next, does your time budget reflect the value you say you put on relationships? Now, I've hit on this the previous 2 episodes as well, but that's another, does your time budget reflect the values that you say you put on relationship or the value you put on relationships? Number 3, be sure to establish healthy boundaries in both your personal and professional relationships. The consequences can be minuscule or catastrophic. Be sure to establish healthy boundaries in both your personal and professional relationships. The consequences can be minuscule or catastrophic if you don't develop boundaries. Now, for me, the only way I've been able to develop boundaries has been as a result of my own emotional health journey and growth journey. When I was not emotionally healthy and I was emotionally needy, people pleaser addict, toxic positivity, I had no boundaries, personally and professionally. My family of origin never learned boundaries, didn't have boundaries, didn't know anything about boundaries, never even heard the word boundaries. until I started growing emotionally. And so, in my opinion, it is critically important to be emotionally healthy, or to at least begin your emotional fitness journey in order to develop, to even know how to develop and what even healthy boundaries looks like. And hopefully in the EQ Mafia in January, we're going to have somebody in who is an expert on boundaries. She's awesome, absolutely bad to the bone influencer. And she's actually the lady who I had on not too long ago, the life coach. And she's got some great insights, but she's an expert in boundaries. And she's going to be speaking again in January in the EQ Mafia for those that are members that are registered that want to get a serious class. I think the area that she's going to be talking about is boundaries. I'm not 100% sure, but anyway, boundaries, the addition and adoption of boundaries in my life over the past 12 to 36 months has been life-changing, y'all. Don't underestimate or overlook the value of relationships. That's my next one. Don't underestimate or overlook the value of relationships. For those of y'all that are on YouTube watching me, I'm looking at my notes here, so I don't want to miss anything. Don't underestimate or overlook the value of relationships. I had no idea that it was going to be such soul food for me to attend that reunion and see so many of my amazing classmates. Next, healthy relationships come from emotionally healthy individuals. Healthy relationships come from emotionally healthy individuals. Can you have a healthy relationship with emotionally unhealthy people? Can you have a healthy relationship with low emotional intelligent people? Healthy relationships come from emotionally healthy individuals. Next, it takes emotional intelligence to maximize effectiveness in relationships. It takes emotional intelligence to maximize effectiveness in relationships. Next, most leaders have room to grow in relationships, whether they know it or they admit it or not. Most leaders have room to grow in relationships, whether or not they're aware of it or admit it. Hubris hurts relationships. Hubris, and no, I don't know the dictionary definition of hubris, but pride. Pride hurts relationships. Next, in what relationships do you experience consistent disappointment? In what relationships do you experience consistent disappointment? Do you have unspoken or unrealistic expectations in that relationship? Again, in what relationships do you experience consistent disappointment? And do you have unspoken or unrealistic expectations in that relationship? So many times when somebody has been disappointed, or I have felt disappointment from somebody that I was in a relationship with, one guy in particular, I asked him, I said, hey bro, like you seem off, you seem upset, what's going on? And after asking him a handful of questions, he said, well, no, you're not doing this or doing that. And I expect my friends to do this or that. And I'm like, dude, when did you tell me that? Well, I didn't tell you that. So how would you expect that I'm going to know that? Well, I just like that. Isn't that what friends do? And I'm like, dude, you cannot expect me to live up to an expectation that, number one, has not been stated, and number two, that I have not agreed to. So we talk through that, but and I laugh, but I think a lot of relationships are in that situation. Next, being fully emotionally present in the relationship adds tremendous value to the relationship. Being fully emotionally present in the relationship adds tremendous value to the relationship. Again, and I've asked this, I think it was on episode 2, on part 2 of this 3-part series. or maybe it was even part one, how many either conversations or relationships have you had or been in where the other person was truly emotionally and physically present in the moment, in the conversation with you? And how did that make you feel? It is memorable, and it probably does not happen as often as we think. And then how many times do we do that? How many times and how many conversations? What percentage of the conversations or the relationships that you are in are you fully 100% in that conversation physically, mentally, and emotionally? Next, your stories and beliefs about relationships will impact your behavior in relationships. Your stories and beliefs about relationships will impact your behavior in relationships. This applies to adults. This applies to teens. That's really important. Your stories and beliefs about yourself will impact your behavior in relationships. Your stories and beliefs about yourself will impact your behavior in relationships. Love your neighbor as yourself only works if you love yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself only works if you love yourself. You can love your neighbor without loving yourself. Ask me how I know. That was my life for the majority of my life. It's much more powerful when you love your neighbor and also love yourself. That change in me has come from my consistent emotional fitness program over the past 4 years. And I'm thankful. I thank God that finally, Matthew 25:14-30, it's a section, parable in the Bible, where an entrepreneur goes off and he's got 3 employees before he leaves on his family vacation to Miami or to the mountains in Colorado or Fiji or wherever he vacationed at. He gave his 3 employees 3 amounts of money. The first one he gave 5 talents, whatever that equivalent is, $5,000. The second one he gave 2 talents or $2,000. I'm making that up because I don't know what the U.S. dollar equivalent is today. And the third one he gave 1 talent or $1,000, and he told them all to make money, give him a return for his money. The first 2 doubled the money. The third one buried the $1,000 in his backyard because he was afraid, out of fear. I feel like God has given me 5 talents, but I've been behaving for most of my life like the 1 talent guy. Out of fear, I've got all these talents that God's given me, and I've been afraid for most of my life, and so I never brought my gifts to bear until now, finally. And I'm so thankful to God that I'm finally in this place emotionally, and how that's another point of how emotions limit and impact our spiritual life and faith as well. I already have some episodes on that and recent episodes on that. Next, certain relationships can feed your soul. Discover why and invest in those relationships. Certain relationships are exhausting and soul-sucking. Discover why and establish boundaries. Certain relationships are exhausting and soul-sucking. Discover why and establish boundaries. Not everyone who needs help wants help. Not everyone who needs help wants help. Asking genuine questions is critical in discovering the other person. I talked about that earlier in the first part of this 3-part series. Asking genuine questions and listening actively is critical in discovering the other person. Relationships are priceless and are therefore worth the consistent investment. Relationships are priceless and are therefore worth the consistent investment. Who is someone you can add value to right now? Who is someone? Make a list. Whether maybe you're driving, maybe you're at the gym right now, jot a note down on your phone. Who can I add value to? And just pause for 30 seconds. 30 seconds, y'all. A minute. Write down who are the people you can add value to, and then reach out to them and add value to them. I think it was in episode number 2, part 2 of this 3-part series, and maybe it was this episode. I don't remember. They're all coming together. Either text them, email them, send them a video message, write them a letter, send them a song, maybe from an impactful song from YouTube. Send them a small gift. Send them maybe go on a walk with them if they're close by. Call them up, talk to them on the phone, send them a LinkedIn message. Anything, just reach out. Tell them you're praying for them. Give them a Bible verse. Give them an encouraging quote. Reach out to them. Who is someone that can add value to you? Reach out. Make a list. Who would be some people that could add value to you? Reach out. Now, obviously, be intentional how you reach out. Respect their time. Respect their time. There's a quote from a guy. He's a kind of an older school preacher guy, a guy named Mike Murdoch, and he said, "What and who you respect, you attract. What and who you disrespect, you repel." Who and what you respect, you attract. Who and what you disrespect, you repel. So when you reach out to somebody that can add value to you, do so with utmost respect, and also let them know why are you thinking what you're thinking? How could they possibly add value to you? And maybe have some very specific questions that you want to ask them. Again, so you don't waste their time. You never want to waste somebody's time that is somebody that can add value to you. So come to that meeting, that conversation, that discussion prepared, maybe with a list of questions, and say, hey, I've got 5 questions. Can I take 15 minutes of your time? Something to that effect. So I'd love to hear which of those points resonated the most with you. Thank you again for rating, reviewing, subscribing, sharing. I would love to hear, are there any other points that you would add to this list on the value of relationships? I could keep going on and on and on. I just kind of sat down in one kind of brainstorming session and jotted down some things that, again, reminders or lessons learned from my 25-year West Point reunion. Hope some of those impacted or reflected with you, resonated with you. And, again, I'd love to have a comment from you, again, whether it's YouTube, whether it's, again, rating, reviewing, sharing, subscribing on our podcast. If you want, again, a safe, supportive, encouraging community, please check out the EQ Mafia at eqgangster.com. If the Mafia is still open, you'll be able to register. If it's not, then you will be on the waiting list, and you will get emails and stuff and updates on when we will open that up for you. So again, I'd love to hear takeaways, insights, thoughts from this. Remember that emotionally healthy leaders help heal other people emotionally, and also healthy leaders create healthy cultures and organizations which create outstanding outcomes and results.